Hi everyone and welcome to Dean Park. I have to say it's been a busy few weeks here at the layout with the layout update last month showing you how to do a waste ground scenic area, and then I had the Bachmann Collectors Day where I had an exclusive interview with both Richard and David from Bachmann, and then we followed it up with an exclusive Dean Park Bachmann launch of their updated Class 47. So it's been absolutely packed. However, in that time I've managed to fit in a review of a new model here, and it is the Heljan Class 104 DMU. The Class 104 is a brand new tooling and was first announced back in November 2020. Now 5 years later we finally have our hands on both the 2 and the 3 car first generation diesel multiple units in the shops and on our layouts. The 104 sits proudly alongside other DMUs from other manufacturers including the Class 101, Class 107s and 108s, as well as the excellent Class 117, which really has set the benchmark for diesel multiple units in 00 gauge. Join me in this review as I take a detailed look both outside and in at this brand new Heljan Class 104 to see if it's been worth the wait and indeed justifies the price tag of around £380. If you're new to Dean Park, please support the channel by checking out some of the previous 13 years worth of content. It shows the layout from its very inception through to the current day, and there's lots of instructional and how-to videos in there as well to help you with your own layout builds at home. Now, whilst I'm not a sub chaser, somebody at the Bachmann Collectors Club Day at Bo'ness did suggest it would be nice if I reached 50,000 subs before I go totally bald, which was nice of him to say so perhaps that should be the target for the next 6 to 12 months on the channel. Either that or I start wearing a wig. Before I look at the model proper, I'll take a little potted history into the Class 104 to give you some background information. And if you get any feedback from this video or indeed from owning this new model yourself, please get in touch by typing in the comment section below. In the meantime, hop aboard, slam that door shut, take your seat and enjoy the journey as I delve into the all-new Heljan Class 104. In 1954, the British Transport Commission authorised 393 Class 104 diesel multiple units to be built by the Birmingham Railway and Carriage Company in Smethwick. The order was later reduced to 302 vehicles, and the first of these made its debut in 1957. Over a 35-year career, these units worked over many routes in the Midlands, Wales, north of England, and in their later years, areas of London and Scotland. In their early years, their home depots included Darlington, Leeds Neville Hill and South Gosforth. However, in the 1960s, these vehicles were also allocated to Bletchley, Cambridge and Old Oak Common, to name just a few locations. These units continued to ply their trade through the 1970s and in the 80s. However, after a fire at Ayr Depot in 1984, there was a shortage of available DMUs on the Scottish region, and this resulted in 12 of the 104s being moved north to assist. These were usually made up of mixes of other DMU vehicles. However, one of the vehicles that moved north in 1984 was unveiled in a unique maroon and white livery in 1985 and was used on summer-only diagrams on the west coast of Scotland between 1985 and 87. This particular vehicle ending its days on the scrap line at Thornton Depot in Fife, where it can be seen here in 1990. Withdrawals continued during the 1980s, with the last of the units on Network South East soldiering on until 1993. However, after their days on the main line, 12 of these vehicles survive into preservation, with a handful of these being operational at the East Lancashire Railway. The model I've got for review is a 2-car ScotRail white and maroon Class 104, fondly known by enthusiasts as the Mexican Bean due to its colour scheme. And in the summer months in the mid-1980s, this unit operated out of Oban for ScotRail and the Highlands and Islands Tourist Board. It's certainly a bit of a show pony, and with its white rimmed wheels and front cab whiskers, not to mention the ScotRail decals and tourist branding. And all in all, it's a bit of an acquired taste. I'm never a fan of white wheel rims on locos, but it does seem to suit this particular train, and dare I say it, it would look wrong without them. Let's stay with the colour for a moment, and Heljan have achieved a good result here. The maroon has a pleasant and authentic depth to it, with a smooth satin finish. The white is fully opaque and well applied to the cab roof and along the sides of the coaches. Whites and yellows can be difficult colours to work with, but in both cases here, Heljan has carried it off. There's a clean transition from the white to the maroon, with only a very tiny sign of hazing along a small part at the bottom edge of the white, if viewed very close up. The roof has a warm grey tone to it, resulting in a good view of the roof detailing. The separately fitted roof vents are neatly applied and look good on this particular model. I believe other variants of the Class 104 had different roof vents, which don't look as good as the ones on the Mexican Bean. There are roof ribs on this model, and when referring to images of the real Class 104 Mexican Bean, these were present, albeit they were relatively smooth. Perhaps the model is a tad overscale in this area, but this doesn't detract from the overall impressive roof moulding and even paint finish. The roof curve transitions authentically towards the white cab roof on both cars, where a tiny neatly moulded rain strip is present above the driver's doors, and this strip protrudes out the front of the cabs, which is an accurate feature as seen on the real vehicles, and that's a nice touch. These feel reasonably robust, but as with everything with fine scale models, I'd advise careful handling, especially when boxing the model up after use. The cab front is an area with a lot going on for what can be argued as a simple DMU design. We've got the cab mounted headlight, which is plated over on this model, along with destination blinds, which are lit. In DC analog mode, these will illuminate along with the headlights, cab and interior lighting. DCC users will have more independent control over these lighting features, however, more on that later. The three tall slim cab windows are beautifully designed on this model. These are wrapped in a black mask painted across the front and cab sides of the unit. There's only one windscreen wiper on the driver's side, which is correct for this unit. These are finely made and neatly applied to the model. The black then gives way to an opaque yellow warning panel with equally opaque white whiskers curving neatly outwards. This is well printed on the model, even navigating its way over a small rectangular grille above the crisply moulded marker lights. All warning flash and data panels are present, with the data printed on the bottom of the window being especially well done. The look is rounded off with a red buffer beam, silver painted buffers, including black blobs to replicate grease applied to the buffers. It's a very attractive, even flamboyant look, and I have to admit, I do like it. Both lamp irons are extremely fine and fitted to the buffer beam just above the buffer shanks. In true Heljan fashion, the pipeworks come pre-fitted, and there's an NEM socket at each end should you wish to add a coupler. However, bear in mind, any further detailing of the ends won't allow a functional coupler to be fitted. Additional accessories are available to fit if you choose. There are also spare traction tyres provided. The use of traction tyres is rarer on new models, but with this being quite a lightweight model with no additional die-cast weight added, this unit must need these to improve traction and performance. The door handles, while they look moulded, are very neatly picked out in silver. A separately fitted grab rail to allow driver access from rail level is also robustly attached. Heljan, from what I can see, have got the proportions along the sides of the body spot on. The windows sit correctly positioned and are impressively three-dimensional, with manual sliding vents correctly modelled. The glazing is made up from several parts, so it's not like a normal coach where there's a one-piece glazing moulding used. I suppose this has the added benefit of looking more realistic when peering into the interior. The potential drawback here is that it relies on the factory gluing these carefully in place as to avoid visible glue edge around the corners of the glazing. And I have to say, all in all, they've managed to pull this off. Although I have heard of some windows coming loose, and this is easily fixed with some deluxe materials, glue and glaze. Moving along the sides, and we've got this large Highland Terrier motif. So this therefore depicts the Mexican Bean in its later years of service, because when first outshopped in this livery, there was a small Highland Terrier along the side of the coach, as opposed to this large one. We've also got the Scottish Highlands and Islands banner faithfully recreated on one side, with Scotland's for me on the other. It's all a bit cheesy and very much planted in the 1980s. After all, it was a moving advert for Scotland, so these slogans were catchy enough for the time. The gangway ends are really impressive, with separately fitted piping used to supply the toilet with water from the tanks on the underframe. The exhaust system is also on show and neatly painted and fitted to this model. The gangway connector curtain is a decent representation of the real thing, and it's all finished off with the same silver and greasy buffers at the bottom. Heljan have used a magnetic coupler for this unit, which dips down quite low. However, there needs to be room for the connecting socket, so that only one decoder is required to operate the lighting and sound in both cars. I'll look at this a little more when I connect both cars for the test. The underframe and bogies are areas that manufacturers really have focused on in recent years, and by the looks of it, on this model, the designers at Heljan have done their homework with the 104. The moulded and separately fitted detail really convey the look of a first generation DMU. Lots of engine and associated parts along with battery boxes are on show, along with some fine pipework. However, despite the fine nature of some of these pieces, it feels robustly assembled. All painting of these parts is crisply executed as well. The bogies have a good level of relief, along with axle boxes picked out in yellow. The bogies move freely with no parts of the underframe fouling them in any way, and there are pickups on the bogies to collect current for the operation of the loco, including the full lighting suite provided as standard. Wheels are turned and fully concentric, decorated with white rims. I've really enjoyed the exterior of this model, but what's it like inside? First off, removing the body is an absolute breeze with 4 magnets holding the body in place. This is a clever setup, and when compared to trying to access my other DMUs, this one wins hands down. There are some fine wires connecting the destination blinds to the actual circuit board, and they're not the longest of wires, so just be careful when you take the body off that you don't detach any of the fine soldered points at the destination blinds. With the body clear, we get a good look at the seating area and the driver's cab. And this cab is nicely detailed, but it's crying out for a driver, so hopefully the likes of Model U produce one to suit this particular model. Above the seating is a plastic frame which houses the LED and factory fitted sugar cube speakers. This is a novel design, and one that features in both cars. I'll be fitting sound to this model later in the video, so stay tuned for that. The lights and speakers in the non-powered car can be operated by the decoder in the powered car, and this is all connected by a plug socket which is below the gangway ends. The wiring from the socket to the lighting bar is passed along through this angular wiring loom, which while functional can be seen through the windows of the unit. It's a bit unsightly, and perhaps a vertical conduit design here at the end of each coach would have been better to conceal any inner wiring. Talking of which, there have been comments on forums about the decoder and circuitry being too easily seen through the toilet and guard windows. This is indeed unsightly, especially when looking at the model from a low angle. From normal viewing angles, the circuitry isn't as visible, however, it's probably one of the few areas where further development is required on this model. The fact is that some locos and units lend themselves better to hiding electronic workings than others. The 104 is one of those where hiding is difficult. We certainly don't have to go back to the massive chassis blocks in the guards area of multiple units, however, so some level of compromise has to be expected. The model requires an ESU 21-pin decoder to operate all the lighting features correctly. If you use another decoder type, you may have to do some remapping, which is something way beyond my expertise. I decided to go the full hog and get sound for this model, and this was supplied by Rainbow Railways in Linlithgow, who can supply Legomanbiffo sound files. So let's plug this sound decoder in and get it fired up. Oh, and before decoder fitting a loco, it's always wise to run it in DC first. I run all of my powered units for around 20 to 30 minutes in each direction before a decoder is fitted. Well, that really did operate smoothly and was quiet in operation. I always find a good run-in helps the motor and gearbox, and I'd always recommend this. The sound file from Legomanbiffo is very impressive as well. However, I have to admit, I didn't expect too much from the two Sugar Cube speakers, but I did think they worked pretty well. Obviously a larger speaker would be better, but where are you going to put it without spoiling the look of the interior? As always, there's a trade-off to be made. So, how would I rate this model? Well, first off, appearance scores well. The livery is well applied, and it really captures the look of the Birmingham Railway Carriage and Wagon Company's DMU. Performance is usually a strong point in Heljan models as they're well engineered, and this model is no exception. It runs smoothly and quietly, and the addition of sound enhances the overall playability of this model. However, I won't be taking the sound into account when judging this particular area, as that is not a standard feature. I'm pleased that Heljan have designed this model to work off one decoder, the cars being joined by a harness. It's a bit unsightly from a pure aesthetic point of view, with some wires on show. Perhaps a solid connection like that found on the Bachmann 158 and 117 would have worked here, but at the end of the day, it's good that Heljan have incorporated a suitable connection. Fit and finish is generally robust, and as I've said, the paint coverage is even and impressive. Some modelers have noted seam lines between parts of the tooling, but on this model, they're well concealed. What's not so well concealed is the PCB board and decoder through the windows. This, while necessary, could have been less obvious. The model is well detailed both in terms of tooling and livery details. It's packed with features in terms of lighting suite. The detail in the cab and passenger compartment are impressive. The gangway ends also feature plenty of detail as per the real Class 104. Finally, value for money, and there's no getting away from the price tag. At an RRP of £389 for the 2-car unit and £489 for the 3-car pack, it's not cheap. Luckily, retailer prices are less, with discounts being available from most outlets. The 2-car retail units are around £330, which if you consider it's essentially a loco with a fully functioning driver trailer, it starts to make more sense in today's market, but it's still a considered purchase. In the case of the Mexican bean, these have sold really well, so if you're waiting for these to be discounted further, I suspect they'll sell out before that happens. With all this being considered, I would recommend this model. If the 104 operated in your era and area of interest, you'll probably opt for one. And in the case of the Mexican bean, it's sure to be one for modelers and collectors alike, and I congratulate Heljan for producing this particular version in their first run. Well, hope you enjoyed looking at the Heljan Class 104 there. I'm certainly pleased to have been able to add this Mexican bean liveried one to the collection. It's very Scottish and sits right at home here at Dean Park. In the meantime, please don't forget to subscribe and help me get to 50,000 before the old hair goes. And also, if you've liked this video, please click that icon as well. In the meantime, stay safe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.